All right, we've kept them waiting long enough. Let's start it up. Here it is, the crossover with Don Taylor and Rick Dhaliwal from Donnie and Dhali on Check TV. You can watch them 10 to noon, Monday to Friday on Check TV. The crossover is brought to you by Basant Motors, powering the playoff drive, home of over 400 pre-owned vehicles, and where the players go. Rick, Donnie, how's it going, guys?
Good, guys. You? Great stuff. Great stuff.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for being so positive. I think this is the last crossover of the year, fellas, because I'm not on the show next Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
And you guys were at Dev Camp anyways, so this is it. This is the season finale of the crossover.
Wow.
So a lot of pressure is on you two to perform here.
Wow. Donnie,
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best. We'll do our best.
How much time off do you guys get, by the way?
You
Like,
guys
it seems
are-
you're off you're off the whole summer.
What are you? You were off
Most
the
of
whole
winter.
summer, are you
You're
not?
off all the time.
You're
Yeah,
off all
we
summer.
got July and August off. Taylor's
There's
agent.
a rumor out there that we might have a couple of weeks off.
Taylor's agent is the best in the biz.
Drance gets all
looking
summer
at him.
off, but I like take a week off and then I'm back like rotating around the morning show and stuff. So I'm here. I'm just not on this
there you
show.
go.
This
All
show
right.
stops, but I have to
All
go to
right.
work, unfortunately.
All right. All
You
right.
got to hire
available
Donnie's
if you
agent.
need us.
That's true. I got to get Donnie's agent. All right, let's
It's a
start.
pleasure working with you.
Donnie's agent is Donnie. I got news for you.
No, he's got an
Well-
agent, really good one. Top of the top
Who's
of the
more
top.
connected to agents, me or you? It's not even close.
Yeah, I know a lot of agents, but I don't have one. Like Drance has got one. You got one. I think Bruff and Ruff got one. I don't
Yeah.
have one.
You got to get on that, Rick. Talk to one of your agent pals. Get a good agent, man. Okay,
Yeah.
speaking of agents and speaking of your conversations with agents, Rick, we're now 5 days out from free agency opening here. What's the latest you're hearing on the Canucks, their potential targets, all of their unrestricted free agents that they still haven't signed?
Well, I just want to concentrate on Zadorov and Joshua.
'Kay.
Those are the two big ones for me. I really do believe that. Like, Donnie and I talk about the size element. I really do believe that Rick Tocchet does not want these two guys to go. I mean, a lot of what made them successful in the playoffs, they were hard to play against. These two, Dakota led the NHL in playoffs in hits heading into Game 7, I think after Game 7 too. Zadorov, we know how he got under the skin of other teams and big hits as well. Dan Milstein telling me today they will remain open-minded and they will not rule anything out till July 1st. When it comes to Zadorov's future, there have been no talks, still no talks, but Milstein is hoping for a final offer if the Canucks can clear up some cap space. This tells me the player really wants to return. It tells me there's hope. Milstein waiting right up till July 1st is very interesting for me because there hasn't been a lot of talks. And the fact that he's going to be patient, he could walk. Like Milstein and Zadorov could announce any minute that we're going to July 1st. They're not doing it. That tells me a lot. That tells me that, they want something. They want something to happen where he can possibly come to Vancouver. Now, when it comes to Joshua, I'm not hearing anything positive. This is a player that is clearly, for me, outpriced himself in the market. I'm told the Canucks will not do a silly number on Joshua. We're hearing some big numbers for Joshua that he can get on the market, over 3.5, 3.7, even some people saying 4. The Canucks aren't going to go there. They're not going to do that. They believe they developed Joshua and they can develop another player like him. Time will tell. As always, I'd like to say this as well. We can only report as reporters on what we're hearing today. Things can change in 2 hours, 1 hour with one phone call. But right now, just not hearing anything positive progress or anything with Joshua.
The other thing that happened today, and Rick made us aware of this, is interest in or possible interest in Jeff Skinner. There's talk out of Buffalo. He's got 3 years left at $9 million per. Talk about an OEL type buyout there, which would be really expensive for the Sabres, but would early on at least during that penalty give them some cap room, and whether or not Jeff Skinner would be a fit in Vancouver, maybe alongside as a left winger alongside Elias Pettersson. We had Ray Ferraro on the show, and he didn't shoot that down, but he felt that wouldn't be a fit, even though Jim Rutherford is the GM who drafted Jeff Skinner back in 2010 with Carolina. But Ray just felt he's not enough of a Rick Tocchet type player for him.
I can see that. I can see that for sure. And I think that's a complication that the Canucks are going to have to be careful with, especially because we saw with Kuzmenko, right? You can be as talented as you want. You can fit in well on power play one. You know, Pettersson and you can have great chemistry, but it's not going to be enough. You know, like it's not enough to be productive. You also need to be on the ice, right? Like you also need to be able to do some of what this team needs. And that's sort of where I think the Joshua question's so interesting, Rick. You know, with this guy, I mean, yes, he shot a hot percentage, but I mean, how many combined feet from the net were his goals, right? Like he is always right in the blue paint. Like I don't think he's going to be a regression candidate like a normal guy. We saw the penalty killing, you know, he didn't really play at the net front. He only really played top 6 minutes in the playoffs and he was productive. I mean, for me, he's the sort of guy who profiles like a guy who could maybe do more and sort of justify a silly deal. And he's kind of 101 on this market. Like, you were saying you think 4 million's a silly number, Rick. Like, I don't even think that's silly for this guy.
He's going from 800,000, Thomas.
I get it, but
it's
like
800,000 to 4 million is, in a lot of people's eyes, silly.
I mean,
but a possibility.
It's surprising. I get what you're saying, Rick. It's surprising, but I also think that there's a chance he's worth it, right? That there's a chance if you sign him for 4 years at $4 million and he ends up, you know, doing what he did this last season, has chemistry with Connor Garland, there's a chance you're really happy with that deal.
Okay, here's one for you. The Canucks give him 4 times 4, and then he goes backwards next year. Doesn't score 18 goals, and he's stuck at 9. Imagine the heat on that guy in this market and the heat on the Canucks.
You can say that about anybody, though.
Oh, okay.
Like kind of a decent
deal.
But
that's the great unknown, Donnie. We don't know if he's going to get back to 18 goals or not. Hey, listen, I'm a big fan of the guy. I mean,
I don't think you are.
Doesn't sound like it, Rick.
No, but there's. I'm looking at it from both sides. You know, the agent's obviously going to have one hell of a market for this guy on Monday. Let's be honest. I mean, we've already heard teams like Chicago, Toronto. Boy, I think when you look at Toronto, what's the number one complaint every year? Not enough playoff-type guys in the playoffs. And this guy and Zadorov would help Toronto, you know, rectify that problem. But, I mean, he's going to have a wonderful market, and great on him. And, Donnie, he's going to do what 99% of the public does, and you and I did, and everybody in the media. If you get a big raise and a big contract, you're going to take it. And why wouldn't you?
You know all about that. But let me ask you this, Thomas, let's get your take. But Patrick Kelvin, was that a slip-up after the season was over? He made himself available, like they all did. All the management and coaching types and players made themselves available after the playoffs were over. And he said, Patrick Kelvin said something to the effect of, our job is to find the next Dakota Joshua. And that made me feel that, well, was he supposed to say that? Are they just have they resigned themselves to losing this guy?
Great
especially
question.
if they feel he's too expensive.
I don't think it was a slip. What I think it was, though, was like a revealing moment that sort of showed you how Patrick and how this Canucks front office is going to view filling in, you know, what I think they see as glue guys on this team, right? Having size matters, having grit, having some scoring ability, having the ability to do what Joshua did this past season, penalty killing ability. I mean, all of that's going to matter, but there's a difference between the players you're going to be willing to overpay, right? Your Filip Hronek, top of the lineup, plays is a right-handed defenseman, is in his mid-20s, like has all those attributes where he's not just a fit short-term, but is a fit, you know, to sort of balance you out long-term, where I think this club is going to be willing to spend. And then there's, you know, hey, he's a really big, really good, maybe he can play on our second pair. We probably like it better if he's on our third pair defenseman who all the fans love. Yeah, we'd love to keep him, but we have to hold firm on the line. You know, ultimately we see him as a middle six winger. Can he play second line? Yeah. Maybe, but there's no guarantee, so we have to hold the line. We can't fall in love with sort of that tier of player. We need to be careful and disciplined. Look, I think that's how you have to operate in the hard cap sort of era, but it does. You are, I think, with it, from a Canucks perspective, in a pretty challenging spot, just because, you know, Zadorov wasn't just a third pair guy for this team in the playoffs. He was occasionally playing top pair minutes, right? Joshua was a top 6 forward. Elias Lindholm was a top 6 forward. That's a lot of like really crucial pieces that they're going to have to replace. They have the flexibility to do it, But you don't envy them over the next week. I'm sure it's going to be gut-wrenching for Canucks management.
Let me get this in. I think Patrick Allvin said that for a reason. I think owned Joshua's number for a long, long, long time. They can't get there. If they got there, why are we at the 11th hour? I think he said that. I think he said that on purpose. That, look, we will develop the next Joshua. I think that was said because I think both sides were far apart at the time. And clearly, I can't report that there's anything close. So I think he said it for a reason.
And, Rick, we've obviously heard their interest repeatedly in Jake Gensel. Now, I know you've said maybe pump the brakes a little bit. We've heard from Elliot Friedman as well, him saying, I don't know if Vancouver's going to be able to get it done. But whether it's Gensel or not, the fact that they haven't signed Zadorov, they haven't signed Joshua, they're being really careful about bringing these players back. Does that say to you that, again, whether it's Gensel, whether it's something else, they're keeping this cap space open, not just because they don't want to make a mistake on those players, but because they want to have the room to go take a really big swing next week in free agency?
Exactly. Flexibility. They're going to have a ton of it. If they go into Monday without all these guys signed, they've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 guys. Yeah, that's a lot of money, Donnie, they're going to have to play with on Monday. And don't rule out a trade this weekend, guys. Don't rule out, Jim Rutherford, he likes to go and make some big moves. They're going to be in Vegas all weekend. And don't tell me with all the other GMs there that there's not a possibility of the Canucks pulling off a big trade. You know that as well. So they're going to have the flexibility. You've got Rutherford there. He loves big moves. So don't rule out a trade this weekend either.
Rick, with Joshua and Zadorov, I think the club, has sort of understood for a while that they'd be difficult to keep given the market prices. But Blueger and Myers sort of stand out for me here as guys that I'm going to be watching closely, obviously, before the market opens on July 1. Are you hearing anything there? Do you think there's optimism? I certainly know or was hearing about a week ago that in the wake of the club sort of accepting Lindholm's departure, that Blueger was going to become a greater priority. Any progress? Anything you're hearing on that front?
They're talking to Blueger's agent for sure. There's been multiple talks, but he's been kind of, told also that, there's bigger fish to fry, right? And, I think that was the thing with Myers, too. I think JP was told that, Myers was so positive. Everything was positive, and now you're hearing, and we're entering the 11th hour, and you're kind of wondering what happened there. I don't know. It was so positive with Myers. JP came on our show, JP Barry, the agent, and said, we want to re-sign in Vancouver, and, maybe they're out there looking at other right shot D for that second pair in the $2 to $3 million range. And maybe they could sign the guys. I don't know. But
good luck with that. But listening to your show yesterday, guys, and earlier today before we came on, that's really interesting with Dylan DeMello and his numbers and his value in relation to Winnipeg in relation to Tyler Myers' value in Vancouver, $4.9 million a year. Oh. And I when you said that, I almost drove off the road. But it kind of made sense that if Myers can get that that will take a lot of people, maybe even the Canucks themselves, by surprise. I don't think anybody would expect that, but you made the point, guys, yesterday, Jamie and Thomas, that he was a valuable player that's been liked by, very much so, 3 different coaches here in Vancouver, and I think maybe people were, I don't want to say delusional, but maybe dreaming, thinking that they're going to get him for like $1.5, $2.5 million.
Yeah, and you look
Myers,
go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, if they lose Myers, Joshua, and Zadorov, my goodness, I mean, that's a ton of size. Those are Rick Tocchet type guys.
Rick Tocchet type guys. Sorry, Rick, but the Rick Tocchet type guys, but also the type of guys that this fan base has wanted for a long, long time, and people really enjoyed. Not just the success that the Canucks had, and relatively speaking, they did have success, but the way they went about having success. Old school, there was edge there was size, and people really enjoyed that. And also, I think what they enjoyed was that Rick Tocchet, this, Thomas, he basically begged for that type of defense.
That's it.
At the end of his first regular season, and they ended up getting it, and it really, really worked. And if they go away from that, I think people will be really disappointed.
It's sort of an odd thing that I'm going to be watching really closely, because I think the way that this team wants to play, Donnie, that you're talking about, is so specific. It requires so much speed along the wall, along the wings, right? Which kind of, if you're looking for top six forwards, means maybe you're limiting the sorts of players that can be maximum, can hit their maximum level with you. And likewise, I think it works best with really big D. And so once again, whether they are able to keep this size in the lineup or not, like, they're going to need it if they're going to be as effective playing the way that they did as they were last season.
I get the attraction to the size, right? Because as you said, Donnie, like, Canucks fans have been waiting for so long for this, right? And we saw how effective it was. They had their most successful season in a long time. But I keep coming back to something else Patrick Allvin said repeatedly at his year-end availability, which was, this was only the second round. We need to get better, right? And he was very clear. And I have a hard time seeing how they get better if they prioritize just bringing pretty much the same team back and giving all of these guys raises. So, look, I get it. It would hurt to lose a big piece of the identity of your team. But if that's what it takes to go out and land a star player like Jake Gensel or somebody on the trade market, I think you kind of have to bite the bullet and do it, and then try to find, whether it's Brendan Dillon, or try to find the size and the toughness aspect somewhere else, because that's the only route I see to this team really taking that step forward, is adding that next star-type player.
But the answer to that for some people would be, okay, right, they didn't get past the second round, but they had this formula that as a fan, I really, really like.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have Demko. What if they did? What if they did have Demko? What if they had Besser in that seventh game? Would we be talking about the Canucks, getting to round 3, maybe to a Cup final? It's a really interesting predicament they're in right now.
And the other thing I want to say is, next year this time, the Canucks do not want to be in this situation, 7, 8, 9 free agents again, because I'll tell you what happened this year. These 7, 8 UFAs, them and their agents, all feel their clients played a big role in the Vancouver Canucks' best season in 13 years. So everyone other than Myers, everyone's got their hand out for a raise. And I'm really surprised that they've built a team with this many UFAs. I don't think next year, next year, they should have 8 to 9 free agents. Like, this is going to be major turnover.
I don't think it worries Rutherford that much, though, or Allvin. But, I think Rutherford's totally comfortable saying, hey, I've got the flexibility. I'm going to go out and replace you guys. I don't think this is Jim Benning losing to Foley and Markstrom and Tanev and being kind of surprised and not having a backup plan. I think Jim Rutherford knew exactly what he was doing acquiring all these UFAs, and he's going to be comfortable going out and trying to replace them.
Yeah, there's a confidence there, a cockiness there with Rutherford.
For sure.
A lot of people like it.
But
I also think it was a hedge.
Over 7, 8 guys is good?
No, but I think it was a hedge, Rick. Like, this was a team, I actually did the work on this the other day. Can you believe that this franchise has not made the playoffs in consecutive seasons since 2012, 2013? It's over a decade ago,
yeah,
right?
I can believe it.
It shocked me. Honestly, I knew it, in my bones, but I was still stunned. So, given what they'd inherited, Rick, I think they structured a team to be flexible. If it worked, they had their core locked up. If it didn't, they could change direction quickly, as opposed to what they inherited, where it took them 1.5 years to even begin to make progress because of how locked up they were into a whole host of inefficient contracts. So, you're right. It is unfortunate that the team didn't have more of the upside that this club realized over the course of the season locked up. And some of those pieces are now going to get significant raises, but I think it made sense last summer. I also think it makes sense to bet with a little more confidence on this group, given what they achieved last season this summer.
Oh, yeah.
I
was reading a text. I'm getting a text from
See what I got to do.
That's the most Rick has ever agreed with you.
I was reading a text from an agent, and I wasn't listening to you, Thomas. I'm not going to lie to you.
Way to own it, Rick. But I'll say, look, Rick, I get what you're saying. I don't think they want to have all these UFAs again next year.
What's he saying? He just said he wasn't listening to anybody.
Earlier, his last answer.
Oh,
Rick, I understand that you like big men with soft hands.
Soft hands.
Yeah.
Hey,
Gotta have those soft hands.
Guy,
There's nothing
Soft
wrong
hands.
with
big man, soft hands. There's nothing better.
And
you know what, Thomas?
you need the big D too, of course.
Can I give you some love though, Rick? Can I give you some love? Every
What?
time you say big
What?
man with soft hands, I laugh. But what really gets me every time you do it is when you eventually go for hockey.
I'm clearly talking about hockey. What else would I be talking about, Thomas?
Any occupation.
Yeah.
Really? Can't go wrong. Big guy, soft
big
hands.
Men with soft hands are good.
Yep. No doubt. Don't know about that one. All right. I think that's as fitting a place as any to wrap it up. As I said, I think this is going to be the last one of the year. It's been a blast doing this with guys. I think the listeners really like it. I know I really look forward to it. I assume Drance does as well. I don't want to speak for him.
I like mixing it up with you guys. It's the best.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this with us. I hope we can do it again next year. Have a great summer, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Talk to Rick's agent.
All the best, and Jeremy. I was going to call you Jeremy. Jamie, listen.
Yeah.
It was really pleasure working with you this year.
Thank you, Rick.
I won't say the same to the. It was really good. We were at 6:50 when I got there before I got my ass canned. But anyways. It was fun working with you this year.
Yeah,
appreciate
guys,
that.
This was a blast. Fantastic.
All right, that is Don Taylor and Rick Dhaliwal from Donnie and Dhali
I'll
on
call you
Check
later,
TV. Joining us for the crossover here on Canucks Talk. And again, the crossover brought to you by Basant Motors, powering the playoff drive, home of over 400 pre-owned vehicles, and where the players go.